Hey everyone, welcome to the sixth episode of the Mean Green Gridiron podcast 2024 edition. I am Billy Sear, and I'm once again joined by Carter. Carter, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Good to get back in the win column. Tomorrow is possibly going to be the first game I attend this year. Not sure yet, but we're going to try to make it out. Um, Vibes are good. Vibes are good.
They are. They are as good as they have been in 7 years, at least through 4 games, right?
Yeah.
6 years. So good, nice, good 3-1 start. One of the more wild 3-1 starts you could probably expect, just given how big that one loss was. But it's all right. We're 3-1. 3-1 is 3-1.
It's kind of one of those, like, if you had told me before the season
Exactly.
for 3-1, you don't even really care about the tech loss. You're like, oh, all right, cool.
Yep. So Wyoming game, win 44-17 at home in front of 20, 22, 23-ish thousand people, and then another 4,000 that were maybe had a ticket but didn't show up. But that's okay. Good crowd nonetheless.
Stretch the truth just a little bit.
Yeah. So good win. Obviously, it was marketed, so that they sold some tickets, and I think this was probably the game that I think I wanted to see from Chandler Morris. So he throws for 305 yards, a couple touchdowns, no interceptions. I think that was the big thing for him. I think what I was really looking for this game was to kind of get a baseline, like a median Chandler Morris performance.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see. We've had the high of being the AAC Player of the Week in Week 1 against South Alabama, and then the last two performances prior to Wyoming, he threw 6 interceptions. Obviously, some were his fault, some weren't. But I think regardless, what I wanted to see is just kind of see his performance normalize a little bit to what we can expect most games, game in and game out. And if this was that, then I think we're going to be sitting pretty good the rest of the season. Had a really good game. I think he kind of, to me, it felt a little bit, not in a bad way, but it felt kind of game manager-ish. Like he was taking shots when he needed to, but he was also protecting the ball. He was, making smart, short passes, keeping the chains moving. And then, I think the biggest thing is just no turnovers. That's really what we wanted to see. This game was
for sure.
after the last 2 weeks, and it was kind of like a game manager plus, game manager kind of premium package where he did manage the game. He kept the ball in the Mean Green possession, and then he also added in a little bit of Chandler Morris spice with some first down runs and a really impressive touchdown pass where it kind of looked like a shortstop ranging up the middle and fielding the ball with his left hand and kind of throwing across his body to first base. It was a cool little flick to Blair Conwright for the touchdown. So, like I said, all in all, pretty pleased with the performance. Is there anything you want to say about the offense? And DT Sheffield had another big game.
He did. My guy DT that I picked before the year as my breakout star seems to be fulfilling the prophecy. You were talking about Chandler, and I can't remember what exact instance it was, but there was one third down run he had for probably like 10, 15 yards where he was able to get us a first down. And it was plays like that where, like you kind of said, you wanted to see like kind of the median Chandler Morris of what we can hopefully expect against teams that we should beat. Again, it's like I've said on previous pods, I don't mean to, discredit anybody or talk down to an opponent, but Wyoming is just a team that North Texas should be beating based on where their rosters are at.
Sure.
So this is absolutely a game where you want to see, the average Chandler Morris, and we got that, pocket composure back. We got that solid ball placement back on passing. When he ran, he looked confident. It was as good of a game as you could have asked for. I think it was kind of one of those games where it kind of took a while to get the wheels turning a little bit the way they probably should have been early on. But ultimately the final score is the final score, and Wyoming is a bottom 10 team in the country, so I'm pleased with the results. Like I said a couple minutes ago, if you take the whole aggregate 4 games, I don't know how you're anything less than, very pleased with where this team's at. People have I listen to every UNT pod in the universe, and there's like 7,000 of them, and pretty much all of them have mentioned that like the fact that we're here with all the injuries we've had, and 77 new faces, and we're 3-1 to start the season. Like, how you can't be any happier. So now that we're getting into conference play, definitely, just coming off this one, it's nice to see that some guys are really hitting their stride. Like you said, DT Sheffield has just been one of the highlight playmakers this year. The running back stable continues to just pound out guys that are just tough. I mean, Shane Porter, watching him play on Saturday, just running through brick walls with like he runs like some running back out of the 80s where he's just plowing forward. Our guys don't run scared, and that's you can testament that to Patrick Cobbs maybe, but just every running back we have runs with ferocity and no fear. And it seems like one of those coaching things where it's like you can take a guy who Shane Porter hasn't played any running back ball at the FBS level, and here he comes in his first game, and Wyoming's a terrible team, but he just ran through them. Like he made them look like mincemeat. So I think that we're reasonably excited going into conference play with where we're at. The defense has stepped up the way they needed to. They played great on Saturday. I don't really have any complaints. I mean, I think everything is where it should be, and I said, I think it was after the SFA game, I was like, I need a couple weeks to kind of gauge where this team is at. But I feel good. Looking forward. We can talk about schedule later. Obviously, we'll have an off week here after Tulsa to kind of look into the meat of our schedule, which is certainly coming in late October, November. But after the Tulsa game is when stuff starts really getting serious, and so. We got a good opportunity this weekend to really set some momentum going into conference play. And Tulsa's another, I call them a good bad team. I think they're a bad team that has some upside. They've played a couple teams close this year, but I don't think they're going to win more than 4 or 5 games.
Yeah.
So hopefully the crowd's better. But yeah, overall, just I'm happy. I don't like that we're lying about crowd size. We don't have to do all that, especially when you picked the Wyoming game as the game to market this year, which I don't understand why we did that. Because we've been talking in our group chat about how there's just been no
follow-up.
No follow-up. Like there's, as far as I'm concerned, there's no home game this weekend, and it's like, man, like I'd argue Tulsa's a way bigger game than Wyoming, or like a way just a more recognizable name brand, I guess, in this area. But
right.
Who knows? So I'm hoping the crowd's a little bit bigger. I'm hoping for 25-ish this weekend.
Yeah, that would be great. I think if we can crack 23, like legitimate, butts and seats kind of thing, then I'll feel pretty good about where things are at. But hopefully a good crowd. And then circling back on the Wyoming game. So I think, one of the things we would be remiss if we didn't talk about there is that defense made some scheme changes.
Yes.
Ran more 3-4. And I think before people get too excited that is going to be the Matt Capone staple going forward, I think you do have to consider, one, your opponent was a run heavy kind of program, kind of team. And then two, look, we're down a lot of guys in the secondary right now. I wonder, I think that, probably depending on who you have back from the suspended players, you might see still going back to the 3-3-5 base. But the coaches, what they all kind of echoed talking about this decision was that it was made the day after the Tech loss, and it was made with the idea in mind to get Shane Witter on the field more, the linebacker transfer from Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. He had been playing well. Javen Anderson had not been playing well. And they also talked about it. Just basically, it really wasn't that. It was really not that big of a wholesale change, because it was mostly just, again, that you put an extra linebacker on the field and you take out that bandit position, and the linebacker's kind of playing that sort of position. It's already kind of a hybrid safety linebacker to begin with. But now you're getting those 4 linebackers on the field who this team, I think, trusts. You got Jordan Brown, Weslowski, Witter, and then Jalen Smith. So those, it was more, I think, about getting those 4 guys on the field. Chavez Brown has played pretty well as well. I think he technically got the start. So you're starting to see at least Capone having some level of ability to change, at least to fit his personnel, and that seems to be what this was. Like I said, if we get Sproles back and we get BJ Allen back and we get Xavier Bryce back, does that mean that now we have the Jimmies and Joes to play the 3-3-5
Sure.
as more of a base? Probably. So we'll see. But it was, I was impressed with the look. Witter, it looked like in some cases he was kind of the second level linebacker. In some levels some cases he was on that first level, kind of lined up next to the defensive end, sort of. So I think he's a pretty versatile player. He was able to kind of handle that, playing in space, playing the pass, playing the run, covering guys leaking out of the backfield. I think he did a really good job. I think that was promising performance. And statistically, we once again, for the third time in 4 weeks, we set a new, or no, we didn't set it. We by 2 yards, but we had a better team defense performance against the run than we had all of last year. So take week 1, South Alabama, 150 yards rushing on the ground for them. We allowed more than 150 rushing yards in every single game last year. And then SFA 67 rushing yards, Wyoming 69 rushing yards. So nice job by the defense there. Yeah. So the defense right now is allowing 3.89 yards per carry. If you take out the tech loss, they're only averaging 3 yards per carry.
Yeah.
I know you can't take out the tech loss, but I think, when you start doing some, sample sizes and statistical manipulation, you kind of see, okay, well, maybe that was a bit of an aberration. But, really outside of that tech game, I think the defense has been really solid this year. So, hopefully that continues against Tulsa. I think, do you have any kind of final thoughts on what we saw from the defense? A second half shutout, some 3 and outs. Any final thoughts on their performance?
Yeah, I mean, my big thing is we've been so much better on third downs this year. Again, I feel like we're going to be rehashing if you take away the tech loss, because I feel like the Tulsa game should go in our favor. Hopefully that's on par to be a sizable win. But I feel like kind of going forward, we're going to talk about this season being like, well, if you take away the tech loss, that's definitely going to be the worst we look all year. There's not going to be a team that spanks us like Tech did the rest of the way. Not even Army. And Army's good, and they're going to run on us, but I still think that's a team we can at least hang with. UTSA is down for what they've been the last couple of years.
Right. I
mean, there's not a team on our schedule again that's going to beat us like that. One thing that I wanted to see was, that tech loss was so bad that, their coordinators were out here saying like, well, we saw this play that worked 3 times on them in one game last year. So we just did that and it worked again. And it's just like, you spend the whole week, you're like, man, it feels like we just got completely out coached and out schemed and outplayed and out physical than we did. All that is true. But there's not a team that's going to do that to us again. And so 1 week after that game, the best thing about football, like Coach Morris said in his post-game speech, was that like you immediately have a chance to rectify those mistakes and you have a chance to get out there and prove yourself. And the defense was awesome. Wyoming's terrible. They're just not a good team. That's a team you should play well against, but you hold them to less than 70 rushing yards. That's a win. We outgained them total yards by 300. Like that's awesome. That's great. Yeah. One thing that I still want to see is a little bit of reduction in penalties. We're still, having some bad penalty numbers, which is not like anything really concerning number wise, but still just, I think we had, I don't have the stats in front of me. I think we had like 10 penalties Saturday.
Yeah, we had eight for 70 yards.
Yeah, that's not terrible, but
which is double the amount of penalty yards that Wyoming had. So
right, yeah, it's not terrible. You can manage with that, but still, that's just something I'd like to see. Obviously, go down just a little bit. Still want to see the defense create a couple more turnovers. You mentioned us not turning the ball over. That's great. If your defense isn't forcing turnovers, as long as you're holding onto the ball, that's fine. But especially in a 44-17 win. It doesn't matter that much, but yeah, no. Really all I'm doing is circling back to the last 4 games as an aggregate, as a whole.
Mhm.
You know, we had 2 great defensive performances against inferior opponents. South Alabama looks to be a decent squad that we beat, and yeah, our defense was
They're
not good.
good, yeah.
Our defense wasn't good in that game, but it was bend don't break, and bend don't break defense is fine for where we're at as a program. In year 2 of this team, with last year's defense being the worst in college football, so you know, yeah, I really hope that Tech game was an aberration, and I said that I was betting on it being one after that loss. It sucks the way it went down, but you know, I just, the rest of the schedule looks completely manageable, and this team looks to be able to, like, first of all, if they had won this game like, you know, 30-13 or something, I'd be feeling a little bit less optimistic. But they really answered any questions. You know, that's a team that you should go out and dominate against, and they did. And uh, you know, they could have come out lazy after a loss like that against Tech, and you know, still had some issues, but everything looked to be working just fine. You know, we've talked about it the last couple weeks, but Chandler's ability to just kind of get one guy going, and just to find one guy that is going to work for you each game.
Right.
It's been a specialty these first couple weeks. And so, you know, again, I know we're banged up. I know we're missing guys. We're missing receivers, running backs, a bunch of skill players, especially. But, you know, I think that having 4 back there and him staying healthy through 4 games is key too. Just can't really ask for much more where we're at, man. I'm just happy. The vibes are good. I'm excited for the Tulsa game. Like you said, Shane Witter, I put it in my notes too. Shane Witter had a great game, and he's been definitely one of the bright spots on the defense this year. So I'm glad that the coaching staff is willing to make some schematic adjustments to get him involved more. I think that's kind of what you have to do with a defense like this, where if there's guys who step up and show that they can really be a leader, then you kind of have to put the dice in their hands a little bit. But yeah, you know, you mentioned a couple guys who I think have really stepped up the last couple weeks. Ethan Weslowski has continued to, I think, play a little bit better than what we're used to from last year. I think he's kind of more of a when he's bad, it's noticeable, but when he's good, it's also noticeable. And he had a couple plays on Saturday where I was, you know, I kept an eye on him. He looked physical. He looked fast. So I was pleased with what I saw from him. You mentioned getting the suspended guys back. I think Xavier Bryce is the only one who's like really commented about being back on the team, but
yeah.
They're all on the roster, so hopefully they're all back. I would assume probably sometime after the bye. But those 3 guys are enough talent to, you know, like you said, maybe they go back to the 3-3-5. Who knows? But regardless, they're enough talent to add to the defense where it'll make a noticeable difference. So, yeah, that's really all I have on the Wyoming game. I just, you know, that's a team that is bad, and you know, they're a first-year head coach. They'll be fine. They'll get it together. But right now, where they're at, that's a team we should beat 44-17, and you know, not turning the ball over. Efficient offense, efficient defense. It's just not really a ton to complain about.
Yeah. And looking into Tulsa, like you said, I think it's a good way to describe them. What you said earlier, kind of a good bad team. They're 95th in the country in points per game, and they are 90th in points allowed. So, and you kind of look at their stats. There's not a ton that they do well. I think most, you know, where they kind of rank in FBS statistically is mostly, again, out of like 130, 131 teams, however many there are. They're mostly ranking in the 80s, 90s, 100, kind of in that range for most of their statistics. They're decently throw heavy. I think that's, you know, again, I don't think they do a ton well, but I think they, identity wise, they're going to put the ball in the air. Mm-hmm. Their quarterback, Kirk Francis, I think he's 4th right now in the American Athletic Conference in passing yards. So he's a guy who put the ball in the air. He was a true freshman last year. When we played him, he was making like his 2nd start. He was a walk-on last year, true sophomore. And I think he's kind of, it seems like they found their guy at quarterback after kind of some tinkering with different guys last year. Now, they may have found their guy, but I think, you know, probably next year, his junior year, or the year after that, his senior year, I think they'll hope that he's kind of what Chandler Morris is now. A guy you can slap a C on his jersey and kind of expect to be one of the top quarterbacks in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's there right now, and so that's where an area where I think we got a good advantage. Chandler Morris leading the AAC in yards and touchdowns. Francis is fourth in those stats, so he's a guy who's going to put the ball in the air. Secondary will be tested. For that reason, it'll be interesting to see how much we go back to the 3-3-5, given that they are more of a pass-heavy attack. We did run some 3-3-5, depending on kind of the down and distance stuff, with the 3-4 kind of being the base this last week. So yeah, that'll be interesting to watch. For us going into this game offensively, I think again their defense isn't great. I was watching some of their game against Louisiana Tech last week. They beat them 23-20 in overtime. And they did have a decent, I think, defensive line play. So I think that'll be an interesting matchup. Our offensive line, we made a major change, not a major change, but we took one guy out of the lineup, Mekhi Lee, and we put one guy in, Braden Nelson. But the result was you move Larry Moore from right tackle to left tackle, you move Landon Peterson from right guard to right tackle, and then you put Nelson in at right guard. So there was some shuffling around just to kind of replace one guy and get the best five out there.
Mm-hmm.
According to Eric Morris, Landon Peterson had the highest graded game of an offensive tackle this year at North Texas of all the, I guess they grade every position like you'd expect. And he had the best graded performance for any tackle that has, played for us this year. So that was interesting to see. I think that was I think that's going to be a much help change there. I like Landon Peterson at tackle, and anything to keep Chandler Morris clean and give him more of a clean pocket to throw in, that's going to be huge. Obviously, tackles are paramount to keeping that pocket from collapsing. And then Tulsa's, like I said, I think their defensive line is gonna have some players and pose some challenges. But if the offensive line can hold up well, I have a really good feeling against their secondary. Has struggled this year. I want to say that they're 112th in the nation in yards passing per game allowed. So they've struggled against the air. They've faced Oklahoma State, who's tough, but outside of that, Northwestern State, Arkansas State, Louisiana Tech, not exactly great opponents. Oklahoma State had them 45-0 in Tulsa. So that game, it was ended up 45-10, but Oklahoma State definitely controlled that game. So we'll see. Again, I think there's definitely opportunities to exploit that team offensively and defensively. For sure. The challenges will be good for the secondary and the passing game, and then the offensive line against that Tulsa defensive line. And then as for us, I think back to Francis, I'd say he's probably right in the middle of like quarterbacks we've faced so far. He's better than Vidlak from SFA. He's better than what we just saw from Wyoming with Swoboda, but he's not as good as Baron Morton. He's not as good as Gio Lopez. So it'll be a good normalized test. Like this is kind of the median average kind of quarterback you're going to expect to see going forward in the American. How do we hold up against that?
Yeah, I agree. Same thing with the running back too, Anthony Watkins. He's had a good year so far. I think he's averaging like 5 yards a carry or something. So same thing with the running back, and this is a good test for the running back for the running game defense. I mean,
right.
Yeah, we keep using that word median, but this is really just one of those games where you're like, this is about the middle of the road kind of team you're going to be playing. Like I said, Tulsa's a good bad team. They've had some early success this year and some early not so much success. Like you mentioned, they got pretty easily handled by a Big 12 team on the road. Their offense,
that was at their place.
It was, yeah. Oh, it was at their place, was it? Oh, I didn't watch that game. I don't know. But regardless, Oklahoma State took care of business against them. But I watched a little bit of that Louisiana Tech game, and their offense, at least for like the first half, was just really kind of sluggish. They kind of got it going in the fourth and overtime a little bit.
Yeah.
But just I don't know. This offense doesn't really scream anything that our defense is going to struggle with too much. They don't have any. I don't think like kind of like you mentioned, their quarterback. He's a talented enough guy, but I don't think they have anybody on their roster where we've talked about the last couple of weeks, like South Alabama's receiver who torched us, or I'm forgetting the names. I should have wrote those down in my notes. The Texas Tech.
Well, yeah. You're talking about Pritchett, Jamal Pritchett first.
Yeah, Pritchett.
I think you're talking about Pritchett, and then
Yeah,
Brooks,
Pritchett, and then the Tech's running back whose name is evading me.
Taj Brooks.
Yes, Taj Brooks. Yes.
I will say they do have a 5'8" receiver who's their leading receiver this year, 359 yards through 4 games. Yeah, Camden Benjamin. So hopefully that doesn't look like shades of Pritchett in week 1.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, I think he's got like 300 plus yards already this year. So yeah, he'll be tough to contain. But I don't know. I don't see anybody on there. I've watched a little bit of their tape, and they don't look like an offense that's going to come into Denton and just kind of dictate the tempo of the game. This feels like one where if we come out prepared and our defense at least kind of carries some of that momentum from Wyoming, this should be a game we're able to pretty easily schematically match up with them. And I don't know. Nothing about Tulsa really scares me. I think they're a middle of the pack AAC team that at best will win 6 games. Like I don't know. I don't think they're specifically great at doing anything on either side of the ball. They can pass it moderately well, but they've looked a little bit shaky on offense so far this year, and so I'm gonna roll with my guys in this one. I think this will be another good win for us. This is again one that we should just expect to win as much as you reasonably can. Yeah, I don't know. Respect to Tulsa. I don't think this is one we struggle with.
Yeah. I wanted to give a couple pieces of information that I did some research on. So out of all of the current American Athletic Conference teams, we have played Tulsa more than any of them. So, you know, new conference, but not exactly a new opponent. This is a team that we've historically, we played them 29 times. We played them. They are the 11th most common opponent for North Texas football in our program's history. So, you know, again, like I said, close school that we have some history with. It'll be a good measuring stick. So I think the other research I did a little bit into is I've been looking at our seasons since we returned to the FBS. So this is our 30th season back in the FBS, or what was Division 1A back then. And during that time, those 29 seasons prior to this season, we have won 3 or less games 11 times out of 29. So almost 40% of our seasons have been 3 wins or less since we've been back to the FBS. So again, I think, you know, this isn't the perfect team. And as much as I like to think that, you know, we're ascending as a program, you never know with NIL. It's so year to year now, and transfer portal and all that. But you know, look, I think this is a good team to get behind. They're 3-1. We've had a lot of seasons where we did not win 4 games, and you know, we've got a chance to do that this Saturday. So look, I think this is, if you're going to get behind a team, the time is now. The team is close. I would love to go into next year with Chandler Morris and DT Sheffield back as kind of the top duo in the American Athletic Conference, but you know, nothing's guaranteed there. So
there's a real possibility that this team comes into homecoming at 6-1.
Yeah.
And again, that's if, you know, everything goes according to plan. But, you know, you got to win 4 straight games to make that happen. But worst case, 5-2. I mean, I don't think we're losing to Tulsa. Florida Atlantic looks extremely beatable, even though Boca's a little bit of a hard place to play for us in the past. This is not a great FAU team. And Memphis got beat this week by Navy, who, again, is a good team. But none of these games are automatic L's. No. So yeah, homecoming's going to be a blast. Like this is definitely one of the best teams that we've had in the last 30 years. Come to the game.
Yeah. And one last note about Tulsa is that so the last, I guess, 5 times we played them. So I mean they were, sorry, looking it back up. I just closed out of it. But in Tulsa, you know, we talk about kind of as a program taking steps forward. You look at the times that we played them in recent note. 2005, they beat us 54-2. 2006, they beat us 28-3. 2008, they beat us 56-26. 2011, they beat us 41-24. And you know, last year we beat them 35-28. So again, this is a team that has historically kind of had our number, even in more recent memory. In the 21st century, they've had our number. We beat them the last 2 times, 2013, 2023. But you know, we talk about getting where we want to be as a program. This is a team that is on our level and has been, and if anything has kind of been above our level at times. And we have a chance to beat them for the second straight year, and sort of show that improvement as a program. So I think that's a big opportunity this week to go ahead and do that and say, hey, this isn't just the same old North Texas. Like we are doing things that we haven't done historically. We are playing, better than what our historical kind of data has shown. But I guess with that, you want to go and give score prediction?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you just said. Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record when I say this stuff, but like these are teams you should beat. You just pointed it out. This is a program that is in its second year of head coach. They won 4 games last year. They're not excessively good at either side of the ball. Like they're a middle of the pack AAC team, and if we're going to take that next step as a program and kind of reach some of those accolades that we're shooting for, like a 10-win season or a bowl championship, whatever it is, these are the games you got to win, and you got to win them relatively decisively and kind of show that you are a tier above that team. So
yeah,
I think that's what's going to happen this weekend. I'm glad that I was able to
Carter the Oracle.
Yeah, because the Tech game, Lord, I was about, what was that, like a 60-point swing on my prediction. So I was able to rectify that with Wyoming. I got to start keeping track of what I'm.
You had 49-17, and we got a 44-17 final.
Okay, that's a lot better. Let's go.
You had their point total right. That's the first this year that one of us got an opposing team's point total, I think.
Okay, I'm proud of that. I'll take that trophy. Again, Tulsa, this is not going to be a blowout win. I don't think this will be anything like 52-14 or anything like that. I think this is a game we win along the 38-20 lines. Feels like a game we might struggle a little bit early, kind of pull away late. This is a team that we should beat by 2-3 scores once it's all said and done. Do you know what the line is right now?
I think it's still us 6.5. It's been kind of 6.5, 7.
I think that's very safe. I think that's one of the safest lines you'll get for us this year. I don't think Tulsa keeps it within a score.
I completely agree.
Yeah. I would hammer UNT money line, and I'd take the over. I think that's going to be a pretty cozy 10-15 point win. We're also going into a bye, so please don't lose. Please do not blow all this momentum and lose at home to Tulsa. I would very much like to sit on 4-1 into mid-October. So, let's go North Texas 38, Tulsa 20.
I'm gonna go North Texas 41, Tulsa 24. I'll give them a garbage time touchdown in there.
Okay.
But yeah, I think this is a game we control. I think this offense is nothing we haven't been able to play well against this year defensively, especially at home. You look at those 2 home games. See if we can get three really solid home defensive performances in. I think we do. Maybe not quite as good as last week, but I think we'll, and please, for the love of God, no more special teams or touchdowns allowed pick sixes. Like if I got to think that it's in our favor that we're not going to go 3 straight weeks of giving or 4 straight weeks of giving those up, because SFA had a pick 6, Tech had a pick 6, and Wyoming had a kick return. So don't go 4 weeks.
A lot of these things are preventable, man. Like this team, if this team cleans up its errors and just takes a little bit of a step in trying to prevent, like you said, pick 6s and self-inflicted wounds, the ceiling is only going to go that much higher. I think this is an exciting group, and if they can just clean up the errors and shore up some of the small stuff, could be some good stuff.
The ceiling is the roof.
The ceiling is, that's right. The ceiling is the roof.
All right, we got 2 more Mean Green predictions. 2 more Mean Green victory predictions. We're just gonna go and keep doing that all year, I guess.
Yes.
And that's okay with me, especially if they keep actually winning.
Now that we have a bye week, I can take the time to go back and see how we've done against all the odds this year on our predictions.
Yeah. All right, and with that, head out to the game and go Mean Green.
Yes, sir. Go Mean Green.